Hello and welcome to the Miles with Moms podcast. We are so happy you guys are here. We have had just such an amazing response, and we're so happy that people are listening and watching on YouTube and sharing their feedback and sharing their experiences. And so please keep it coming. Please subscribe if you can. Leave your reviews, even if they're not glowing. That's okay. No, I'm just kidding. You can take constructive criticism. We know the audio quality was bad in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, we're working on it.
We're working on it. It's a learning process. It's all about grace, right? I mean, we have to give ourselves grace. So anyways, I am Whitney. I am one of your co-hosts.
I'm Olivia.
I'm
Why do I say
Trisha.
it like that?
Is that a
Jana.
question? Olivia?
Always.
Maybe?
Olivia? Well, I don't want to talk over anybody because we other than Whitney, we all ended in A. So I'm like, Olivia, Shanna, Trisha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, if I talk over someone, you'll know that if I'm asking the question, it's Olivia.
It always reminds me of Anchorman. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie where they're like, darn it, who put the question mark in the teleprompter? Drum roll. Shanna is also here with us.
Yes, sorry.
Let's hear your beautiful voice, Shanna, for those who are not watching.
I'm sure not. Just kidding. It's Olga. Just kidding. Olga. Hopefully there's not an Olga that's listening. Are also really bad.
Shout out to an Olga out there.
Olga. Shout out to
What
Olga.
up,
We want to
Olga?
hear from you. Leave us a review.
Oh my gosh.
So today we are talking about a really, really important and serious topic. We're going to be talking about runner safety because just a few days ago, the runner in Nashville, Alyssa Lokits, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, but if I am wrong, my apologies. She was running in daylight on a popular path. I actually think that I have run on it before when I've visited the Nashville area. And she was abducted and sexually assaulted and murdered. And I think every time this happens, it's shocking and it's saddening and it's maddening. And there really just aren't words that do it justice. But it seems like every time there's an incident, there's another layer of just disbelief because people heard her scream. He's trying to rape me. And there were people around. It wasn't in the dark. She wasn't, by herself and she tried to fight back and it still happened. And I kind of personally took this topic on about 2 years ago. There was another Tennessee woman. I live in Tennessee, a mother runner of young kids in Memphis who was running her usual route on a Friday morning. Usually she ran with friends, but as it doesn't always work out with mother runner schedule, she was running by herself before she went into work. She was a preschool teacher and she was also abducted and brutally murdered. And that one hit close to home because as mother runners, we could very much put ourselves in her shoes. And she and I actually had corresponded via Instagram. We knew some people in common. And you could just really see the steps she took to get her running. And of course, there are always people on social media who are criticizing I think she was running around like 4:30 in the morning, but unless you're a runner and unless you're a mother runner, you don't understand why you would be running. And so people were criticizing and saying, why was she running at that hour? Not understanding that that's the only time that she had to do something for herself that day before she went to work, before she was taking care of her kids. And so I wrote a lot about it on my website. I organized some self-defense seminars here in Knoxville for women to take. And I personally became way more vigilant because I was classic, just put in my AirPods and zone out and turn up the music really, really loud and not at all pay attention to my surroundings. And I didn't have GPS tracking on my Garmin. I had my Strava public. And so people could see my start and stop points, which you can go into settings. Strava has now changed it where that's not the default. where they hide your start and stop, but people could see where I live. And so I started taking more steps to make myself safer after what happened to Liza Fletcher, is the runner in Memphis. Um, so I wanted to open this discussion up, I guess, first talking about your personal experiences with just runner safety or feeling unsafe on the run, and then the steps that you have taken. I will say that there are often times where I feel unsafe or I see somebody. I mean, it happened actually this morning on the Greenway where I run, where I either zoom past really quickly or I turn around, depending on the situation. And the only time I've ever been touched was early in the morning. I used to live downtown Knoxville, and I was running early in a group of guys. They thought it would be funny to come at me, and they like grabbed my butt. But it was, I was not scared. I was more mad at that point because I could tell that they were still out from the night before, just having a good time. And I was running early before I went into work. So I think I would like to start with you, Shanna, because you had something very scary happen to you. And you talked about it publicly on Instagram. And I know that you shed a lot of light on runner safety and the steps that you were taking to make yourself safe. So if you feel comfortable, I would love for you to share your experience.
Yeah. So I did. Yeah. It was honestly hard to like come out and talk about it because you kind of go through like a like guilt and shame of like internally, like with yourself, like what could I have changed? Why did that happen to me? So you kind of like go into like that victimhood or like, oh, it was my fault. But yeah, I was glad that I actually ended up coming out and talking about it because I feel like it allowed me to start healing from the process, but also like connect with other people and show them that like, hey, I'm not alone in this situation. A lot, like probably like I think it was like 96% they said on the recent poll. Us women feel unsafe outside running, which is a big statistic. So, but yeah, I went for a run on a Friday early morning, like a lot of us. We hobby runners. We're not getting paid to do this. We have normal lives, normal jobs. I'm a mom again to 6 kids. And my husband was actually going out of town on Saturday, which is usually when I do my long run, and I have more flexibility to leave later in the day, but I couldn't because he had to leave town for work. And so I moved my long run to a Friday morning. Woke up about 5 o'clock in the morning, got out there, had put in like 22 miles that day. And I literally like did it in my neighborhood because that's where I felt the most safe. My neighborhood has like a lot of like walkers outside, a lot of like, you'll see every occasionally a couple runners go by. It is a very active neighborhood for early hours, which is what I loved about it. And so, yeah, I was out there on my run, and not one time did I feel unsafe. I felt peaceful. I was having one of my best runs of my build, honestly, at that point. And I actually had just passed one of my friends on the run. She was running her dog, and I saw her like about 15 minutes before this incident happened. And anyways, I mean, I've had a few times in my neighborhood where I was like, I shouldn't go down. It's like really dark in this area of the cul-de-sac, so I'm not going to go that way. And I've listened, but this time I never, not once had like one single red flag that went off that was like, something doesn't feel right, And so, yeah, I was on my run and I came down a corner and I saw this white car pull down the street, does a U-turn, and then sit there in the middle of the road. And mind you, it is dark outside. There's nobody around. Bus stops, all that has already passed. Like, there's no reason why this car should be sitting in the middle of the road. And I noticed that they had a California plate too. And so I was like, this is like weird, but I wasn't scared at that point. I was just like, oh, maybe they're waiting on me or something. I don't know. And so I keep running and I kind of start to slow down because I noticed that they're going to go the direction that I was going to turn. And, anyways, the car stops as I stop, and then they pull back and they notice that I'm going to go straight instead of turn. And I was like, that is really weird. And that's where the flags went off. I was like, something doesn't feel right. This car is super sketchy. It is early in the morning. They're sitting in the middle of the road with like their headlights were on the dim like level setting, just really creepy vibes. And so that's when I was just like, this is not good. And so I kind of started picking up the pace, and they were matching me in the car, like the speed to my running pace. And that's when I just like pushed it. And we had like the cameras from like houses nearby that like captured that I had to go and collect because I was like, I'm going to find this person. But it was terrifying. Like, I laugh about it now because it's been a year since that point. But in that moment, like, my heart breaks when I hear stories like Alyssa's or, some of these other, just there's so many mother runners that have been put in a situation that didn't come home. And I can say, like, the first thought that came to my mind in that situation was like, I have to get home. Like, I have 6 kids that I do not want somebody else to raise. Like, that truly was like my first initial thought was like, my family can't afford for me not to get home. And, and so I start running down this hill and the car turns with me and they're matching my speed. And finally, I just had this thought, do not run home. If you run home, they're going to know exactly where you live from here on out. And so that freaked me out because I was like, well, where am I going to go? So I had the thought to turn around and the camera catches me turning around and coming back up to this door. And I knocked on this door. And the reason why I stopped there is because there was like so many bright lights on this house. Like there was light here. And I noticed that they had like a doorbell camera when I came up. And so I was like, if I just keep clicking this like a million times, like this is going to record me the whole time. And so the car goes down. He sits on the side of the road and I can see him from where I'm at. And then he turns around, he comes back up the hill and he sits like about 15 feet above on the hill and he's just parked there. And he's just watching. Like, I literally had a thought, I was like, he's trying to see if I'm going to get into this house. Like, and it freaked me out. So I called my husband because I was in my neighborhood. In my neighborhood, Olivia, kind of where I live. Like, I'm in the out man of no man land. So like for a police to come to where I'm at, it would take them like 15 plus minutes. Like that's been our issue with our neighborhood with like emergency calls. But if I call my husband, he could be there in like 3. So that's why I call my husband first thing and foremost. And I'm like ringing the doorbell. And then I tell my husband what's going on, like frantically, like, I need you to come get me, like this, there's a car following me, blah, blah, blah. And so eventually he's like, okay, like, so he gets in the car, he comes to come and meet me. And then the guy comes out of the house and the guy walks out and he's like this big older man and he was not happy. He was like, little dogs were barking and they were like, so he was upset. He was like, what is going on? Why are you ringing my doorbell? And I had him come out to his driveway to point up at the car that was still sitting there. And I was like, that car was following me. And I just feel really scared right now. Like, I feel like there's bad intentions, and I just called my husband, hey, can you just stand here with me for a couple of seconds while my husband makes his way over here? And he kind of calmed down after that. And then the car just slowly like takes off and leaves. And, long story short, I'm grateful that I got to go. Like at the end of the day, like that's where my story differs from so many of these women that never got to go home, and I feel so fortunate and so grateful for that. And I just hope that like this conversation, as we, dive into it deeper and we talk about the things that we carry, that like, we know that like by doing these things, by taking these safety measures, like we're making their lives that they lost as a blessing in a sense, right? Like we're taking their tragedy and making it a blessing for other people if we choose to defend ourselves, if we choose to protect ourselves. Because I know if they were alive and they could talk about their situation like I could, they would say, please take this, please do this, please do that, And so I hope that like this conversation just lessens the shame of feeling like, wow, I feel so dumb being out there with a safety tool in my hand, but rather, hey, I'm doing this because there's so many other women that wish that they could still be doing this,
Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know all the details, and you were so smart to select a house with lights on, to see that they had a ring, to get it documented.
Especially
when it comes
in
to
the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
fight, flight,
Right,
or
like-
freeze, like you definitely fought and thought on your feet, because that is the problem. A lot of times is we freeze, we don't know what to do, which is why
Yeah.
with self-defense, it's like you can't just take one class. It has to be repetitive. It has to become instinctual. And then you also got a dog as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. She runs with me quite a bit.
Trisha and Olivia, have you guys ever had any scary moment?
Not like that. It makes me, I feel like every time something like this happens, like it's just so heartbreaking, and it makes me so sick to my stomach, because it's like it can happen to any of us. And like you said, it was broad daylight. There were people around. It's like when you feel the most safe. And so I beat myself up because I feel like I'll go through moments where, like, when Eliza Fletcher was murdered, I was so diligent and carried pepper spray everywhere with me. And then it kind of, you don't hear about it. And I'm like, I don't need the pepper spray. And I run early. I mean, it's dark, it's early if I'm not on the treadmill, not running with my kids. So, I mean, it's scary for sure. But I did have one time in college where I had a car follow me. It was a woman actually, and she was on something. Like she was just not. And the way that the road was, it was like sidewalk, big like area of grass, and then the main road. And so I was running opposite of her, and she just stops her cars and starts just screaming at me. I mean, I wasn't even near the car, and I was kind of like stunned, like what is going on? And so kept running. She pulls a U-turn, drives onto the grass towards me on the sidewalk, gets out of her car, and at that point I was just like, what is happening? And took a coffee mug and whipped it at me. Like I have no. Yeah, it was very, very weird. Like I was like, like she's obviously not in her right mind. And that was scary, but just totally different kind of scary. And I've had like instances where I certainly didn't feel safe. And I mean, going back, I used to be in sales and I would travel across the country in different hotels, and I would be in very sketchy areas and would run without a headlamp in areas I didn't know, like putting myself in just very bad situations that I thought nothing of at that time. And have been in situations where, you just like your guards up, the red flags are waving high, but I have hopefully never will experience anything like this. It's such an important topic because, I mean, it can happen to any of us.
Yeah. I think part of that though too is like when you're in your early 20s, or I mean, I don't know, I don't even know when it stopped for me, but you have this feeling of invincibility, and I think a lot of the times like nobody prepares you for it. I lived in like some really sketchy areas of Vegas, and I would run calls down there like once I moved out. Actually, not even once I moved out. And I was like, how did I survive this? And also, how was I never scared? But I did have a dog at the time, and I was just a walker at the time. I definitely never but I would go for like these 6-mile long walks, and there was nothing in me that was like, boy, I am so afraid. Like to me, like, if there was like a transient person, homeless person, anything like that, like it was never like a red flag to me. And where now, like even in my neighborhood, I live in a nice little neighborhood, and a lot of the political flags that they have out, I feel like those are houses I would probably run to if I needed protection. I'm just saying. I run past them sometimes and I'm like, that's a house I'd feel safe running to that one. Like where it's like, anyways, that's how I feel in this like actual area of my neighborhood. But once I leave my neighborhood, speaking of dogs,
she's our guard dog.
Once I leave, it's a lot of farmland and things like that. And I didn't realize, I felt pretty safe when I moved up here. And I do think it is overall safe. But there was a car even just the other day, all they were trying to do was turn left, but they came to a dead stop next to me, and I whipped out, I had one headphone in, and I whipped it out, and I looked at him and I made this face, and he just pointed at me like, I'm just trying to turn left. And I was so scared.
Picturing Olivia being like, you want to go? You want to go?
Right. That's unfortunate. And because I'm like, the problem also is I listen to a lot of crime podcasts, and I'm like, if anything were to happen to me and they found me, I would want them to say she had a lot of defensive wounds, and I would want to make sure that they knew that I fought the best that I could, because that's what I would do. And so I haven't had any specific incidents, and I don't want to say like, I don't want, I'm so grateful that I haven't. I just also don't want to jinx it, and like all of a sudden it's like, oh, we just talked about this and here we are.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And because I get so scared nowadays, like even before I found out about Alyssa, I think it was my long run day, and this car just made a U-turn, and it freaked me out so much. I ran right back to my neighborhood, and it's like not even a mile loop, and I just made loops until I finished at 20 miles. Like, do I want to do that? No. But the one thing that I would love to share for people is that, especially if you're young and you feel invincible, that if you tell someone no, like in any capacity, and you feel unsafe, that no is a full sentence. Like, you do not need to explain yourself in any way, shape, or form. If someone is making fun of you for I have my little Go Guarded, and if anybody is making fun of you for it, like you don't have to laugh at it. It's not funny. What happened with Alyssa, I can't even talk about, like, I don't know why it's just so horrible. Like, she did everything right, and it makes me so sad because she did not stand a chance. Like, that guy had a gun, and so we don't have to be nice to these people. We don't have to accept if someone comes up to you and you're like tying your shoe, getting some water. You don't have to be nice as women. We don't have to be like, haha, let me make room for you. Like, you don't have to do that, because one, it can be confusing for a male. They will think you are flirting. And then it's also hard though, because you don't want to be rude and you don't want to make a man mad at you. And so finding that balance of how you're going to approach if someone is freaking you out, because I have that all the time when I'm just grabbing some water at a fountain and it's still dark outside. Like, I don't want to put my head down. You know what I mean? So like, it's weird to have those thoughts, but I will move the water fountain out so that I can just keep my eyes on my surroundings. It's really interesting just to find that balance, but then like where I'm overreacting a little bit maybe, but I don't know. I would rather just stay vigilant, and and then also that we can never, ever, ever accept someone victim blaming. So a lot of times I think when we're talking, especially to maybe other males in our life, they're like, well, she was out there at 4:30 in the morning, and if she's wearing short shorts, and it's like,
Right.
yeah,
No shirt and just a sports, like she's asking
yes,
for it.
she's
Like,
asking for
right.
it. Like,
I
it
can't
is,
believe that's still prevalent, that people
I
still
know,
say that. It's just,
Yeah, it really
it
is.
is sick.
I
And
will
it's,
say I had females say that to me, like, well, look what you were wearing. I was like, I was wearing a sports bra
whoa,
and shorts. I wasn't even
female
like,
yes,
too.
the 5-inch ones, like, and they're
yes,
high waisted. Like, I practically am
yes,
wearing a tank top with those high waisted shorts. Like,
Right.
wow,
it's crazy. The comments
yeah,
I got like blew my mind. That it is a
mhm,
problem on both sides, like female
Yeah.
and male. They judge the situation and they rip you apart. And it's like,
mhm,
when you're a mom and you are a working person and you have kids that are in sports, when the hell else are you supposed to run? Like, I'm
exactly,
Right.
sorry. Like,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
the joy is getting out there and running outside, not always
right,
being stuck to a freaking treadmill, you know?
mhm,
Yes,
Exactly. Right.
100%.
exactly,
And it's
Yeah.
like, it's the one time that we can just hopefully just let things go and let our minds be free and not have to be worrying
yes,
about everything that we have to do or tending to other people's needs. And it's robbed from us.
mhm,
Right.
And I
Yeah, the
mean, a
fact that
lot
you
of the
have to
times
yeah,
worry
like
about this.
mhm,
right, worry about putting your head down to get a sip of water. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so sad that like something we find so much joy in is now something that we have to like fear for our lives while doing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
It's so common it's not common right now. It's that finally these people's stories are being shared. There are so many people that,
Uh-huh.
that their names weren't said, and it's finally coming to light. These women were going for a run. Like, it is very, very simple. And yeah, I think that's what's so heartbreaking is like, it happens so quickly too. Like, and you're like, how are we ever supposed to stand a chance to just get out there? And then when there is the other side of like the victim blaming, it's like these people need to be held accountable. And I mean, it's such a deeper conversation of like, how did this even happen? How was this person? How did he have access to a trail? Why was he free from whatever crimes he committed before? Right? Like, it's such a deeper conversation in that sense. But it should be plain and simple that women should be able to go out for a run and feel safe. Like, the fact that I'm telling you, I never in a million years thought I would be the person carrying even pepper spray. Like, I always laughed at paramedics when they would wear bulletproof vests and stuff like that. I was like, you guys, what are we doing? But it was because I felt completely invincible, and I was 25 years old. I just felt invincible. So, yeah.
What are I'd like us to cycle through real quick, like some of the steps that we take to
Mhm.
stay safe. Because I mean, Olivia, like you hit on, awareness first and foremost is the most important thing. Like knowing what's all around you. For me, a big step I took was not running with both of my AirPods in, and if it's early in the morning,
Mhm.
I don't run with anything in. And I love running to music. Like sometimes I'm like, do I even love running or do I just love running to music? Like, and
Oh my
podcasts,
gosh.
of course, listening to our
Yes.
podcast, of course.
Right, of course.
But, and then like I said, I've taken self-defense classes and they really make you think too about, okay, if somebody comes close to you and you feel uncomfortable, what are you going to do? Tell them to get back, to stay away. And then if they take a step forward, then what do? You need to create pain. You need to kick them in the groin and then take off. And whatever you do, if something ever happens, do not go to a second location. Because if you are abducted, the chances that you will not come out alive are so, so high. And then changing my technology settings. I always have a phone with me. I always run in the same area. I'm close to home. Depending on the situation, I will run with something like pepper spray, or I have this, it's called the Defender ring.
That's
And it's
awesome.
like, if you can see, it's a rose. And then when you take it off, it's sharp.
Nice.
Wow.
And so it can hurt someone, like if you punch someone, but it also will collect DNA should you need it. And then, having stuff that has pockets so you can't easily access your phone, or if you are running with pepper spray, making sure you know how to use it. But there's lots of attire that have pockets, but I've done work with Fit Safe. I don't know if you know Faith, but she's created a whole line with pockets for women to feel safe because she felt unsafe when she started walking in the morning during COVID. That was the only time she could get away. But yeah, I would love to hear what changes you guys have made, or what, in addition to what you've already mentioned.
Shanna, do you want to share what that light thing that you have? Because that thing is super neat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I think like with awareness, that's obviously the first. Like, if there's a parked car, I always run on the opposite side of the road. Like, or you shine your flashlight into the car if it's early morning. So is there anybody in the, just being cautious of that. Like, that's definitely something that I do on the regular. And then I'm the same as you. If I wear headphones, it's like ones that I can actually hear my surroundings with. But at this point, I really just I play my music in the back of my sports bra and I can still get the same effect. But yeah, I started carrying this one. So anybody that's watching this on YouTube, this is called the Sidekick. It's with Safely Self-Defense. They just launched it this summer. And it's like a 5-in-1 tool. So it has like the knuckle guard, but they also have this one, which I usually will swap it out with that one too. And then it has the pepper spray that comes out. So you can even run with that. Like if I'm doing a speed workout, I'll drop this on the grass and then I'll just run with the pepper spray. It's just a little bit lighter. And then it has the flashlight, which is like pretty bright. And then it has the rape alarm. So, and then a glass breaker. Yeah. So it's just like everything in one. Cause I used to run with like a pepper spray, and then I had the she birdie, which I put in a pocket. And then had one more that I used to use. So I had like 3 different devices on my runs. And then you throw gels in there and you throw your water bottle, and it's like, you're literally a pack mule. Like you have your phone and everything, and it just like is a lot. So I like that it was just simplified and put into like one hand.
Do you guys run with anything?
I just use my Go Guarded. It's the classic one. Yeah, it's super convenient. I definitely, like, every time I run past someone and I act like they moved out of the way for me, I wave at them. And it's always in the palm of my hand, though. And it's like, they don't know necessarily what it is, but even if they saw the top of it, they would know it's pepper spray, Because I did have a pink one, just pepper spray that I got at like Sportsman's Warehouse or whatever. And like that could come off as anything, like that's her iPod or something, And so I was like, I want it to be aware that I have something, and then I do have a really, really loud rape alarm. I don't know where it is. Never mind. I dropped it the other day on my long run and I still have to go collect my stuff from my long run. So anyway, sorry. That's why I was mom brain, like when there's 1,000 things on your list to do, but it's in the pocket of because I always figured if I try to keep it just close to my chest or whatever, because then I have really easy access to it no matter which way my arms would go. But I think just being prepared for like any scenario, I like that is probably, I probably think about this just just a lot and too much, but it's because I get so nervous. Like I went for a run with Shanna the other day and we were on the trail and I could not stop talking about how dark it was. It just seemed darker than ever, but it's because I'm just more aware than ever. And I just, yeah, it just seems like the Wild West out here nowadays. Like I feel like nobody's afraid of the consequences of what could possibly happen. And so like, I looked up like how strong is this actual blade because if you get trapped in a car, could you break the car window and stuff like that? Like if you tap it at the right spot or whatever. So I think just whatever fears that you have so that you can go out and feel safe to go run, like do some research. Like what is your biggest fear? Is it just, is it the car situation? Is it, being abducted? Is it even just somebody approaching you? How would you handle that situation? So just being aware of like what fears you have, like maybe what are the triggers that get you, like is it the car that makes the U-turn on that really long empty road? Because that's what does it for me. It takes 1 second. Like all they have to do is even put on their brake, like for, to slow down a little bit. And I'm like, oh, I am turning around. This is not happening today. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good homework for everybody to think about how they would handle different situations. And we will include all of these resources, the products that we've mentioned in our show notes. Trisha, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I think you guys have covered most of them. As far as the headphones, I run with the open air, the Shocks, bone conducting headphones. Sorry, which I love. I'm the same way. Like I love running to music. And I did the one earbud for a while, or I would just like play music from my phone in my pocket. But the open ear ones are great. Like I can hear crickets chirping and hear music at the same time.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
and the
better
pepper
for your
spray.
hearing too.
Right, apparently.
I'm pretty sure I'm going deaf already.
Oh my
Running
gosh.
with my music too loud in my 20s.
Yeah. Koros, I have a Koros watch, so they just enabled a safety feature that you can plug in like your emergency contact.
Yeah.
If you're
Garmin has that as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Life 360 I used before that, so someone can track where you are. And then just in terms of like overall safety, kind of on a less intense aspect, just being visible, like when you're running in the dark, like, headlamps, reflective clothing. I wear a Nox gear light up vest just to stay, safe from traffic and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And then, Olivia, I love what you do when you see people, making sure that they know that you see them. You say hi to
that's
them.
good.
Yeah.
Splash the chat, splash the
Do not mess with me. I'll mess with you first. No, just kidding. I wish I was that tough. I'm really not. That's so sad.
I'm intimidated.
Yes.
Okay, but we're going to switch gears real quick. But thank you guys for being so open and sharing on this important topic, because it's just, I think all of us have probably cried since we heard the news about Alyssa and have been really mad. And so, we want to do our part to make everybody safer. So hopefully if you're listening to this, maybe it made you think a little bit more about how you would handle different situations and what you would do to be safer. So switching gears, we've started the last episode doing a ventilator of the week, which is where we vent. Not wanting to be negative Nancy's here, but that's when we run together, we need to get stuff off of our chest. And so do you guys have anything that you want to vent about in our ventilator? Do you want me to start? I'll start.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I do have something.
Okay, so it's sort of a 2-in-1. One is this past week I feel like I've encountered a lot of people who have an opinion on what I am doing with my time and what I need to prioritize as far as I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, like one thing was a parenting / dog training type thing, because we're dealing with our puppy, we're dealing with some misbehavior and it's clashing with the kids. And somebody was making some suggestions and I was sort of like, well, we tried that, it didn't work. And then it was the whole, well, you need to be consistent. You're consistent with your running. Why aren't you consistent with the And
Ooh,
it kind of was like
geez, low
a
blow.
little bit of a shaming. Yeah. And then, then another situation where with dealing with I'm having some issues with my website, and I had hired somebody to kind of help me diagnose, and he started mansplaining to me. He's like, well, sometimes you have to do the hard work that you don't want to do. It's like,
You're like, what have I been
thanks for
doing this
telling me.
whole-
I didn't know this, as
Yeah.
a entrepreneur, I didn't know
Yeah.
that, it's, I'm just not.
Wow.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Those two comments, I'm a sensitive person. Things kind of irk me, but it just, they can get to me
Yeah.
quickly. And so those two comments sort of got to me over the last week or so. So that's my ventilator for the week.
That's fair to vent about. I would
Yeah. The
just the mansplaining part alone.
specifically.
No matter
Yeah.
what came after that, I would have been like, that's annoying.
You're right. It
Yeah.
was via email, so I didn't even dignify it with a response. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
Olivia, you said you had something?
My ventilator is just that honestly, I've been on the treadmill so much and getting out and doing just these small loops on my neighborhood. And I am so tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm in the marathon grind and I love it. I have these amazing workouts. Like today I was so stoked. I had this big old workout and I had to do it with the kids just next to me. Like Charlotte, she just, she wants to just lay there and watch me and I love it. But she's asking me questions and I'm like, I'm doing like marathon pace above a marathon pace, which is not a conversation pace for me at all. And, just that balance of like having any me time at all is just not there right now. And it doesn't take away from like any of the joy I have in running. Like I don't dread the run. I don't dread any of it. Like I love it. I'm excited for when it's finally my turn to go out. And so, my husband has been amazing. He joined a gym so that he can go and work out at 4:30 in the morning without waking anybody up. And I'm so grateful for it. It's so wonderful because it gives me time, but somehow I'm still stuck either doing loops in my neighborhood because it's so dark outside because it's winter time and I can't change that, unfortunately. Well, it's fall time, but yeah, it's just so if anybody is like in that same mode right now where it's like, oh, the treadmill grind with our kids next to us, like I feel you. Wow, it is a lot. Like the amount of fruit snacks I opened while I'm trying to go above marathon pace. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? What? Like, where's my
There
where's
were
my
Mom
village?
Olympics. That would be an event.
Right? Yes,
Running
seriously.
fast and opening fruit snacks at the same
Yeah.
time.
I know. I'd get like silver because I'd be like, this is annoying. Where's my village? I said that like 10 times today. Where's my village? So I'd only get silver because I didn't do it with a good attitude. Yeah, that's my ventilator.
And I think we are all, as moms, so guilty of this where we're bitching about something and yet we have to always add the disclaimer, oh my God, but I love my children.
Right.
Or,
Yes.
Sometimes you really don't. And you should have time to yourself. Like, I think we should normalize that, right? Like,
Yes.
Yes.
you want that free time. It wouldn't be the end of the world if you could run on the treadmill and not have to rip open 15 packs of fruit snacks with your teeth.
Right?
Like,
Seriously.
that's a fair point. Yeah. So I'm gonna stand up for your ventilator.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks.
I
Yes.
always like to
welcome.
point it out to my kids if they're griping about something with like if I'm doing something for myself or to just don't really want them around. I'm like, well, you get to, or if I want to meet somebody for a coffee or I'm like, well, you get to play with your friends and you get to do things by yourself when you want. Why do I get to be by myself sometimes?
Hey,
Yes.
why can't I pee by
So true.
myself?
Yeah.
Let me go to the bathroom.
Oh, no. No.
That doesn't
Only
happen.
dads can do that.
Yeah,
Don't even know
right.
that boundary.
Oh my gosh.
All right, ladies, I have to unfortunately jump to go pick up my kids, but do you guys have, and do you want me to just get off the call? Get off the podcast?
Doesn't matter.
Is it
I don't
going to
have
come to
anything
an
big.
end?
I don't either.
You don't have, you don't
Well,
have
perfect. Just Whitney and me complaining.
right, we're the complainers. Trisha,
I'm
come
just
on,
kidding.
you got something.
You know what did suck last night was my daughter, and this is totally my fault. She's 4. She should be wearing a pull-up still at night, and I made the very big mistake of not putting the pull-up on her and assuming that it was on her. So I had just fallen asleep. And you know when you fall asleep and you're in this deep sleep, and then you wake up to this child sitting right above your head, and it's the most terrifying moment ever. So my son of go into cardiac arrest real quick, and she peed the bed. And so in the middle of my ventilator is that they need to invent something that makes it easier to take off the sheets and then put new sheets on. There needs to be something for us because it's the worst. Yeah.
It's the worst.
It is.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Or
That
you're
feeling
or
when you're
they're over
pulling-
you and you're
Yeah. It's awful.
Yeah.
No, because then you wonder, how long have you been standing there staring at me?
I know.
Has this been going on a while?
I know. My son used to always wear a Woody hat, and he'd put on his boots, and so he'd walk down the stairs, and I'd hear little clicking boots, and I was like, or he would just stand over me with his big old cowboy hat. And I'd wake up, and there's just this tiny little cowboy next to me. It was really funny. It was a good time. I love that.
See, there you go again. You can't love that.
But I love my kids. Sheena, do you have anything?
I mean, okay, so I'm dealing with an Achilles flare up right now. I haven't really dived into that because there's so many opinions. When you have a flare up, people are like, oh, it's because your mileage, or oh, it's because you should be doing this. And I'm so sick of hearing people tell me what I should and shouldn't be doing. I feel like I'm very type A with my training. Easy runs are easy for me.
Yeah.
Running 3+ minutes slower than marathon pace. I can't go any slower. And I feel like I don't overtrain because of the coach I have. I feel how I should. I do strength training twice a week religiously, even at nighttime when I don't want to. So it just it's really annoying when people just feel like they can give an opinion because you have an injury. And it's well, you should be doing X, Y, and Z. And it's don't knock me down even harder. Okay. Just say, I'm sorry.
Totally.
Not we hope that you get better,
Right.
Yeah. I have dealt with that a lot. And
I'm
they
sure.
blame you. They make you feel like it's
Yeah.
your fault. And I hate
Yeah.
that. Yeah. It's not your
Yes.
fault. It happens
Yeah,
to
that's
anybody
terrible.
that challenges themselves. I mean,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
you
Yes.
can, you've said before, you can have everything dialed in and it just, it's a repetitive, high impact sport. Sometimes
Yes.
something's going to be a little
Not be
off.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah. But we hope you get over
Well,
it. We hope you get better.
Yeah, feel better.
Yeah. I know.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
On that note, actually, though, I just wanted to say everybody who has sent in that they would love for us to talk about injuries, and any other topics that you've suggested, especially postpartum. We hear you, we see you, and we're on it. I promise we're on it. So, and then of course, you guys are gonna have tons to add in about injury and especially how you're handling it, Shanna. So, yeah,
And
yeah,
Whitney,
please
Whitney's been on that.
yes. I know you've been on that train for a
I
while.
hate that. Yeah, I hate it's
I know.
become my identity. I'm changing it though.
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
keep sending your ideas for topics you want us to talk about. We love it. We love the feedback. Keep it coming. And as
Call
we
to
wrap
action.
up, we're going to do the call to action. We want to hear from you guys what you're doing to stay safe on the run or what you're going to start doing.
Love that.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for another wonderful
Yes.
discussion. Well, I mean, I guess important discussion. And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, I'm going to go, okay?
Yes,
Thanks.
sorry that
Okay.
went over. I was
Yeah.
trying to talk fast.
No, I'm so